All right, welcome again to Dallas Job Seekers Club. Today we are joined by Phil Konecki with Jewish Family Service of Greater Dallas. And we'll be looking at job scams and spoofs that you might receive and how to avoid them while you are job searching. So I am incredibly excited to take a look at this topic today. And right now I'll go ahead and turn that over to Phil.
Hannah, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. As Hannah said, my name is Phil Konecki. I work at Jewish Family Service of Dallas. We are up in far north Dallas, so right around Arapahoe and the Tollway. I am a career coach with Jewish Family Service. I also am the trainer for the Microsoft Office classes we have. Tell you a little bit about us if you don't know us. We are a community-based organization, and we serve the greater North Texas area. We have departments, of course, which are going to help folks with job searching, like where I'm at with career and employment. We also have financial coaching available. We have a robust clinical services staff available to work with children, with adults, with senior citizens. We have emergency services. Matter of fact, this coming Thursday, we are restarting our drive-through food pantry. So if you're aware of anybody in the area who could take advantage of that, there's no pre-registration needed at all. It operates on Thursday mornings from 9 a.m. until noon. So we are very happy to provide that service if that's appropriate for you folks. So without further ado, let's talk about this job search and let's talk about how people are trying to take advantage of us, scams and spoofs. I'm going to share the screen here with my PowerPoint. Let me get this up and running. And there we go. So again, as we have it there, job search spoofs and scams. If you can give me a thumbs up on your reaction, let me know you can see the slide. That would be awesome. Outstanding. Thank you much. So the purpose of this with regard to today's presentation, I want to let you know that the internet is probably one of the greatest changes that we've had in almost 2,000 years. There's some information that I was researching that says the changes that mankind has made between 1960 and now, say 60 years of our history, have eclipsed all of the changes since the discovery of fire to 1960. So over the past 60 years, we've had more changes than we've had in the previous 2,000. And what that's telling us is that the speed of change is just basically going very, very fast. We get something figured out, all of a sudden something new happens. And so the internet is part of that revolution. Okay? Now the internet allows job searches to be conducted on an unprecedented scale. For those of you who might be up in my category in terms of age, we used to have this thing called a newspaper, and you could find jobs in the help wanted section of a newspaper. Well, the internet's kind of taken that over. And so the really great news about the internet is that it allows so many people to post stuff up there that we can see. Okay? The problem is that the internet isn't really a rock solid, secure piece of equipment, the tool that we have. Okay? So what we want to be able to do is not be afraid of using the internet. We want to make sure we understand what the problems or the challenges or vulnerabilities are of the internet. So when we know what those vulnerabilities are, we can operate on it smarter and we can avoid those traps that can get us into a lot of trouble. So that's the purpose of why I present this information to folks who are in a job search mode or just in general who are not really that comfortable using the internet. And we help these folks move forward as quickly as we can. So the objectives for this presentation. Why am I talking about this? What's the whole point of your being here with us today? Well, first thing we want to do is we want to recognize some characteristics common to scams. Now, because of the nature today, we're talking about email, but these also apply to phone scams as well. So there's generally 4 characteristics that we're going to see in almost every scam that's out there. And we also want to understand that there is going to be an emotional manipulation component in these scams as well. Scammers and people who are trying to take advantage of us are very keen on how people will let their guard down when there's an emotional component to the ask that's being made with regard to this scam. So we're going to understand how emotion ties into this as well. Also, we're going to learn how to take a look at a website address. Okay? When we're looking at an address and somebody says, send me an email back to me, we're going to learn how to see what makes up that address and what we can recognize whether or not that person is sending it from who they claim to be sending it from. We'll also take a look at how do we validate a website. And so when we're talking about validating a website, if we go to a particular website, we have to ask a very simple question. Is this who they say they are? Is this Citibank website truly a Citibank website? And we'll be able to take a look at the address of the website itself and break it down. And I'll show you how you can identify who actually owns the website you're looking at. A lot of times it isn't who we think it is. And of course, we also want to definitely be able to recognize job scams. And they're going to have the same characteristics that we have in regular scams, but we'll speak a little bit more towards the job search portion of how scammers can take advantage of this. So let's talk about email scams and the characteristics. Okay? One of the most basic characteristics we'll find in scammers is that they want to get something for not a lot of effort. Okay? We want to get the most we can for investing the least amount of effort in our part. And that includes things like spelling. That includes things like grammar, or more appropriately, the lack of grammar. So we'll take a look at some examples where some grammar issues can easily call this out as a scam. Another characteristic we're going to take a look for is the characteristic of immediacy. When scammers are trying to get information out of us, they typically want us to realize that we have to act very quickly. We have to act without missing the opportunity. So we may not pay attention to some signs that could get us into trouble because we're in such a hurry to comply with what's being asked for us. Speaking of being asked, most scammers are always going to ask for some information. They're going to ask for information that they can then turn around and use for themselves. It could be to take money out of a bank account, could be to establish a false credit, could be just identity theft. But there's usually always an ask for some type of information. And finally, we will have to figure out the real way to realize to read what people are going to do if we don't give them that information. These were the threats come into play. Okay? And so we will then try to get people to act quickly because we're going to put a threat along with this scam as well. Okay? Now, these characteristics that I'm talking about, they can be written directly in the email. They can be directly spoken over the phone. Those are explicit characteristics, or they can be implied. And it doesn't necessarily have to be always written out in the email itself. It can be a characteristic that we can actually impart on the email ourselves. And I'll show you some examples of that as well. So the four characteristics: grammar, immediacy, request for information, and threats. Let's take a look at a very obvious example of this, and we'll look for non-obvious examples later on. So to start, let's take a look at that email scam again. And again, we'll see those characteristics, but also keep in mind these characteristics are amplified if we use what's called emotional manipulation. As I mentioned in the introduction, if we play on somebody's emotions, we can get you to just not use your common sense. We can get you to go beyond that. If we talk about how our grandmother is stuck in some foreign country and please send us money, so we will play on that all of the time. So emotional manipulation is something to watch out for as well. And then emotions could vary. They can be fear, it can be greed, it can be love. There's a lot of emotions out there that we can use to make you miss these obvious signs and allow us to take advantage of you and get you to drop your guard. And we'll see again examples of all of these here in just a moment. So here is a very basic and blatant type of email scam here. I realize you can't read this. You'll see it in a second. I'll raise it up in a minute. But this is what we call a fear-based scam. All right? We're going to take a look at the characteristics on these on this particular email. And the first characteristic we mentioned was grammar, or a lack thereof. So if we take a look at this, and I'll zoom this up a bit for you. Hopefully that's a little bit better for you to see it. So if you take a look at this, we're going to see there's some grammar concerns all throughout this email, all right? Which, sorry, fair warning, I have to now give credit to Mrs. Rademacher back in 4th grade English class in Britannia School in Chicago, Illinois, saying one day you're going to remember this, young man. So thank you very much, Mrs. Rademacher, okay? So we'll take a look at these in a little bit more detail here about how these characteristics come into play. And first, grammar. Well, there's a few grammar issues here, and I've got them highlighted for you in green. And let's take a look at them in a bit more detail. First of all, take a look at the subject line. And usually whenever people are emailing or texting or using some type of written communication, all capital letters usually means we are shouting. We're trying to get somebody's attention. So that is sometimes acceptable, but here it kind of raises a red flag for me. Next off, we have the email subscriber. My question, why is subscriber capitalized? Does it need to be capitalized? Okay. But moving into that, to the body of the email here, it says this mail is to inform all our Indiana EDU users. Now, typically there's something missing here between all and our, and that usually is the word of. Okay. But again, what happens a lot of times is we will read these things so fast, we will do what I call just drive over the potholes. We'll read through this, and our mind, we will actually insert the missing words without thinking that we're actually doing it. In our mind, we're thinking, well, they meant all of our, and we'll be forgiving of these mistakes. Let's look some more. Upgrading our websites in a couple of days from now as. And so usually there's a space between a period and the start of the next sentence. Here's our capital S with subscriber again. And over here we have a capital E with email account. I'm not really sure why we're capitalizing here. Again, another pothole is details to enable us know if. And of course, the missing word there is enable us to know. Now, when I do these presentations live back before COVID, I would have somebody in the audience read this, and 99.9 times out of 100, people would read it, enable us to know, but they would not read what was written. They read what they think they're seeing. And we're all very guilty of that. So pay attention when we're looking at these. Be informed that we will be deleting all mail account. Again, Mrs. Rademacher, 4th grade English class, Britannia University of Chicago, Illinois, waved that ruler at me saying subject verb agreement, young man. And so again, all mail accounts, that should be a plural. Again, that is, well, that should be that are, not functioning. And being an educator myself, I love this next one. They're going to create more space for students and staffs of the school. I don't know if they mean teachers or 5-foot pieces of wood attached to a broom. I'm not sure what staffs are talking about, but again, it's something I kind of smile at, comma, and here we go again, a capital word you, that's not the start of a new sentence. You are to send your mail account details. So as I said, there are a few grammar issues in this particular email. Now, again, for, fair warning here, this is actually a pretty old one. All right? This was actually generated back in 2008. So I realize there are a little more sophistication that we have now, but I do like using this as a starting example for these characteristics on email scams. In addition to issues with grammar, next thing we want to see is immediacy. When do we want to deal with this? We have to deal with it right now because they're going to update the website in a couple of days. This is going to happen right away. I've got to get on this. I can't wait because I'm not going to be part of that update. So here is the immediacy request in this particular email scam. We want to do it very, very quickly because things are happening and we don't want to be left behind, do we? After immediacy, we want your information. Send us some information about you. Oh, you think they're asking for something here? There you go, in purple. What do we want? We want your name, we want your password, we want your date of birth. We need it. And of course, we're going to send it to them, aren't we? And it's amazing how often we don't think of these things. It's amazing how often we just blithely go through and we start sending information out. Okay? So be aware that there's almost always going to be some kind of ask involved in these types of scans. All right? And then the threat in this example, the threat isn't going to be a threat to our physical harm, but it's going to be a threat to the fact that we're not going to be able to play with everybody else. Take a look at what I've highlighted in red. Failure to do this will render your email address deactivated from our database. Oh my gosh, they're going to take me off their database. I really want to send them an email and say, listen, please take me off your database. I don't want to hear anything else from you. But again, people will see this, they will become afraid, and they will think that they're missing something. And again, Indiana University, Bloomington, Indiana, there were quite a few students who were taken in by this scam. So as I mentioned in the beginning, 4 characteristics of a standard email scam. Lack of grammar, we want information immediately, we want your information, and if you don't give us the information, something bad is going to happen. Okay. Excuse me a second, everybody. Sorry about that. What happened to my email? What's this here? There we go. We're back in business. Okay. All right. Next up. This is something that came to me a few weeks ago, January 21st, came to my particular email address at home. And it says that the post office failed to deliver a package. Oh my gosh, I missed a package. I want my package. But first off, take a look at the email address. Who sent this? It's from somebody named John Walton. I don't know if they mean John Walton or somebody on the TV show The Waltons, but John Walton at hotmail.com.co.uk. So it's nice to know the United States Postal Service has outsourced their requests to the United Kingdom. Maybe it's Scotland, maybe it's Wales, but somebody in the United Kingdom is really concerned about the fact I did not get my package. I am so grateful that people are taking care of me and watching out for me, okay? Now, again, I don't think the United States Post Office is having the United Kingdom send out checks for them. I could be wrong, but probably not, okay? So where do we see these characteristics again? Well, in this particular case, the grammar is actually not an issue, okay? Because again, this is 2021. The scammers are getting better at grammar, okay? But do we have a request for information? Well, sure we do, because again, they're telling us they don't have our address, and therefore, if we want to reschedule delivery, all we got to do is click that tiny little button down there, which of course is the last thing you want to do, okay? So request for information, is there a threat in here? Well, yeah, the threat in this case is implied because if we don't do this, we're not going to get our package. And so here we feel like we're going to be missing something. I better go ahead and click on this. So again, it's definitely a scam. We're being asked to click on a link because somebody from the United Kingdom says that we had not got our package. So pay attention to the email address who sent it to you. Don't worry about the fact that it says USPS on the left. I want to see something over here that tells me it's a United States government email, not somebody from the United Kingdom. Another one. Here's another type of scam where we're going to be missing something. Okay, something's not been put here for us. Okay, this one's actually purported to be from Amazon. Okay, now Amazon says that, hey, there's something wrong with a payment transaction. And again, this is where fear comes into play. Whenever we see any kind of information from email saying there's a payment issue, we get the same type of response that's a fear response that there's something wrong with our money. Okay. You may notice that bill collectors use exactly the same idea whenever they send you a piece of mail and an envelope in the mail, and that envelope has a plastic window on it. Whenever we see that plastic window on the envelope, we think, uh-oh, there's something wrong here. So these emotions are nothing new. Okay. Also notice over here, look at the email address I have circled in red. Let's make that up for you a little bit easier to read. So somebody who has got, I guess I could try and read this, but we've only got an hour, so I'm not going to read the whole thing to you because I couldn't. But take a look at the very end. This is coming from somebody at theorangewater.com. I hope the orangewater.com isn't relating to the fact that there's water orders going on all over the place, but I don't think this is from Amazon. Okay. So again, the orangewater.com, again, don't think this is an Amazon issue. Again, this was sent recently. This was sent a couple weeks ago, February 7th. We're getting these all the time. Now, what makes this seem like it's somewhat legitimate is because something has been removed. Well, this must be legitimate because somebody removed something. Okay. If we have any questions, we can call the customer service number. It's been sent to the person's email address by Amazon. I doubt that's an actual customer service number, but it might be because you may be able to copy, cut, and paste an Amazon customer service number into this email. It may be a legitimate number. Okay. However, we're told down here at the bottom, pay attention down here. I'm going to zoom it up in a minute. It says, don't reply to the emails. We're unable to respond from this email address, which I can appreciate. Orangewater.com might not be a common enough address to respond from. But keep in mind, look over here. Please visit our help center at amazon.com. You see the blue amazon.com here? Notice that the letters zon.com are underlined. And that was by my system. They said that there's something wrong here. And you may not be able to see it yet. I'm going to zoom it up, but notice the second letter A of Amazon. If you can't see it, take a look at it now. You see that second letter A for Amazon? Doesn't quite look like the same first letter A for Amazon, does it? We're going to talk about that technique a little further on down here called compression. Okay? But also notice that if we take a look at this, okay, this is Amazon.com. I'm not sure that's actually Amazon. I'm not going to click on that website. But something else that's kind of a flag for us is notice how the word center is spelled. Okay? C-E-N-T-R-E is typically from folks in the United Kingdom or across the pond from us, typically not from somebody at orangewater.com. So again, a few flags on this email as well. All right. And again, is there a request for information? In this case, the link they want us to click onto is right down here. They're asking us to click on this. And again, if we are, our threat here, if we don't respond to this, could be an issue with a payment invoice. So we think that something's wrong with our money. This is quite common where people will say, hey, listen, you sent some money here, we didn't get it. All of a sudden, wait a minute, I better go check my bank account. I better respond to this, check into it. And that's exactly what these scammers are trying to get you to do. They're trying to get you to click on one of these links. And at that point, they've got us. Okay. Excuse me. So let's take a look at a job scam. Okay. And for my opinion, these are the most insidious of all, because what happens is that when people are out of work and they are becoming desperate because they've been out of work for a month or 3 months or 6 months or a couple of years, and the bank account balance is going down and the concern is going up, the desperation is going up, we don't know what we're going to do. Lo and behold, look what comes into our inbox. Hallelujah, we've been saved. Somebody from Logistic Inc. Management has told us that they think we are an immediate hire person. They're going to bring us on board immediately. Hallelujah. My problems are solved. All we have to do is kindly get back to this person and find out about the company and job details and the payment and the working hours. How much easier could this be for us? Okay. Well, I will tell you that I have never seen a person get hired without at least one interview, even if it's on a phone or just somebody talking to them for something. Even somebody spinning a sign in a parking lot is going to talk to a human being somewhere. Okay. But I went ahead and I went through this and I investigated this. I clicked on that link here, gettelemarketingjobs.com. And I said, all right, let's take a look at this and see what we have here. So take a look at this. Here's what happened the next time after I clicked on this link. Okay. So here are the details about the company. It's located in New Jersey. All right, I got nothing against New Jersey. We can work remotely. Here it comes, everybody. The company's accountant will mail out a check to you so you can purchase your office equipment and your upfront pay for your training program. Here we go. First off, a little bit of grammar issue here. Your upfront training program. So upfront pay for trade program, but also whenever somebody is asking you to do something with money, the red flags have got to go up. Then after that, you are to cash it out and you are to purchase, excuse me, let me get these things out of the way here. You are to purchase these softwares from the company retailer, and here we go. The grammar issues are all over the place on this one. Okay. And of course, we've been buying it from years now, so you can trust us. We've been working with them for years. Well, okay, trust us. Okay. And then you can have your payment direct deposited in a company retailer account, providing you blah, 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 blah. And what they're asking for here is they're asking for you to share your bank account information. Because by accepting their check and cashing their check, they're going to get that information back from their bank, and they're going to see who got this information and cashed it out. And again, we are actually going to be giving them, without us even knowing it, bank account information. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a phrase that people will use. The phrase is called too good to be true. I think in the case of scams, I tend to change a phrase and say too true to be good. If we look at this thing and we simply read it and we look at what people are asking us for, if we can see the lack of grammar, if we can see the request for information, the red flags have got to go up. You've got to be concerned with why is anybody asking us to do this for them? Why are we required to pay for our training? Why are we required to do all of this? So this, in fact, is not a lifeline. Instead of a lifeline, it's a lead weight. So please be on the lookout for scam emails where you're offered a job where there's not even any kind of contact in the first place. And now a history lesson. This was one of the very first viruses that was ever launched back in May of 2000. It was called the I Love You virus. And in case you're wondering, this is a screenshot from our computer systems back in 2000. It doesn't look like it does now. Okay? So this screenshot is actually a screenshot of an email server. Back in the days, remember the movie You've Got Mail, and the little bell would clink off saying you got mail, and this is what it looked like. And lo and behold, somebody sent us a love letter. I wonder who sent us a love letter. I wonder who loves us. I want to know, because people loving us, that's a good thing. We feel good. What am I going to do? I'm going to click on this thing. And again, that's not what we want to do. And so what happened here is that this virus actually went to everybody in your contact list, sent itself out to all of them, and it started to do really bad things to your computer all the way back in 2000. Turns out they actually arrested, I think it was a 14-year-old from the Philippines who created this virus. But the point is that viruses and scams like this are not new. They've been around for a long, long time. Okay? And again, whenever somebody wants to read us, send us a love letter, of course, I want to know who loves me, but I don't want to know that bad. So what companies and organizations are trying to do now to help us avoid getting scammed up and caught up in this is they're telling us, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to ask you for these things by email. We're not going to ask you for these things by phone. We're not going to ask you for your account number, your mother's maiden name, the street you grew up on. We're not going to ask you for your passwords. We're not going to ask you for any of these things. So banks and stores and organizations, they are trying their best to help educate us to not fall for these scams. Okay? So they recognize their customers are vulnerable. We also want to keep in mind, however, the weakest link in all this is going to be us with the mouse in our hand. We are the ones that have to be taking most responsibility for what we're doing here. The organizations and the stores can help, but it's still ultimately it's on us to be aware of what we're doing. So again, some banks and companies are trying to let you know that these threats are out there. Do not share information through the email, okay? If somebody asks you some information, you think it might be legit, give them a call, talk to a person, go to their office, see a human being. Which brings us to websites, okay? when we go to a website, we take a look at a website and we transact business on a website, one of the things that we want to be aware of is whether it's secure. Okay? Um, my father, bless his heart, when he was alive, he said the internet was evil. He's never going to do business on the internet. It's a scam, et cetera, et cetera. And there are ways that we can see the scams here. We can also see what is going to be, what I think is a good requirement to transact business over the internet. We're doing a lot of shopping online now. Even 5-6 years ago, nobody could visualize how much shopping we're doing now, of course. But with Amazon and DoorDash and all this stuff for sending information over the internet, we've got to make sure we're doing it securely. So there's a thing called the digital certificate. And a digital certificate is something that an organization, a company actually purchases. And this, you can think of it almost like a background check for a person. And this digital certificate allows this company to purchase what's called encryption to make the transaction between their organization and you, the purchaser, secure. And I want to show you what to look for in a website address to verify that those companies have that digital certificate. They are a secure website to do business with. So when I'm doing transacting business on the internet, I'm looking for three things. Okay? I want to see these three things. The third I might see or might not, but let's take a look. The first thing I want to see is the letters HTTPS. Okay? Now, the letters might be actually on the website for us. Sometimes it may be hidden, but HTTPS stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secured. Don't worry, there's not a quiz on this. But the most important word here is secured. We want to see HTTPS. Okay? The second thing we'll look for, which I should always see, is a padlock. And that padlock you can see is right over here in front of the word bank. And I want to make sure the padlock is in the locked position. Sometimes the padlock may be unlocked. And if it's unlocked, what that means is that there's maintenance going on between the certificate and the website who bought the certificate. If the web padlock is unlocked, I will not transact business. I will wait for a couple hours until I see it locked again before I place my order or I do my banking or anything like that. I do want to see a padlock in the locked position. And then finally, something else that makes me feel really good about transacting business is the color green. Okay? In this particular case, since this is a Google browser, I will see a green shield behind the words. Depending upon the type of browser you're using, whether it's Internet Explorer or Firefox or Mozilla, you may see the green differently. Some may have green letters, some may have a green and HTTPS, but in all cases, no matter what you're using, I will definitely always want to see the padlock in a locked position. These other two things on here are nice to have, but if there's no padlock, they're not getting my business. I want to show you an example now of a website. And this is from a restaurant in the area. And this is a restaurant that has got two websites. I'm showing you two websites here. And initially up on the top here, let me just kind of highlight this for you. Notice that on this particular website, you see the words not secure. Okay. Now, sometimes people used to jump on this, well, I'm not going to transact business here at all. But keep in mind, these certificates cost companies a lot of money. So rather than totally saying no to this organization, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on the command order online. And then down here, this is their order website. It's a different website from the order. Notice now I do have a padlock in the locked position. So initially it looks like that this website is not secure, but the link to go to order is a secured link. So therefore I feel comfortable about ordering online. If there was no padlock here, I definitely would not transact any business. I wouldn't be ordering any pizza from these folks. Okay. So just as an example of what initially may look like it's not secure, but that's just their landing page. If you go to their order online, you'll see the fact that it is a secured website. And one of the companies a couple of years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, that was always getting into trouble for this, you may remember them from being in the news a lot, was Target. Target was always getting the news for people having their data stolen. Like every 6 months, it seems like there was some news story about Target. And they just decided for a long time not to purchase a certificate. And they finally decided, well, let's purchase a certificate. They spent the money, and you don't hear a lot about people from Target being scammed. Okay? Now, again, a website certificate does not prevent anybody from being scammed, but it is the best protection I have. And I do want to make sure that if I'm transacting business, I want to look for the best possible protection that's out there so I can transact business as safely as I can. So websites themselves, how do we actually look at a website? How do we know who owns a website? Okay. So the first thing we want to do is understand when we read a website, the first thing we're looking for is the extension. Now, in this particular case, I've got 3 Bank of America examples up here. And in each case, the extension is .com. But the extension could also be .edu, .gov, .org, .net. You always want to start at the extension. And once you find the extension, look left. Look to the left of the extension. Whatever is on the left of the extension, that's who owns the website. And when I say left, I mean the immediate left of the extension. And so if we take a look at this example here, the first one up here, bankofamerica.com/myaccount. So .com is what I'm looking for, and I look to the left of the .com and notice that it's Bank of America. Well, it's almost Bank of America. For some reason, they just could not afford the letter F. So it's not Bank of America, it's Bank O America. Be wary of these things. And missing letters will sometimes cause us to have an issue. The second example, we read Bank of America. There it is, Bank of America. That's good. That's good here. Then we got Bank of America here, .com. So which Bank of America do I want to look at? I want to look at the one to the left of the .com, and notice this one, for some reason, they had a sale on R's. And so instead of 1 R in America, they decided to put 2 R's in America. Again, this is not a Bank of America website. Looks like it over here, but this is what I'm looking at here. It's the left of the extension. And then finally, we have bankofamerica.iaccount.com/loans. So this looks like a Bank of America website here, but again, I have to go find the .com, and the person who owns this website is to the left of .com. This is not a Bank of America website. This is a My Account website. Whoever company that is, that's not Bank of America. But keep in mind, when companies register their websites, they can register the website whatever name they have, but whatever is immediately before the extension, that's going to be who owns that particular website. Okay? So find the extension and look left. That's how you know who actually owns that particular website. And it's a challenge for a lot of us because most of us grew up learning how to read right to left to right. Okay? But we've got to read right to left from the extension. All right. Next up, condensed spacing. Okay. Growing up on cold days, my mom used to go to the cupboard, get Campbell's condensed potato soup, which of course meant that you had to pour a can of water into that glop called potato soup, but that's a different story. Condensed spacing is a way scammers can make certain things look like other things, okay? And so what I mean is this. Take a look at what I have in this set of quotations. I have the letter L and the number 3. That's normally spaced. There's spacing normal between the 2 values there, the L and the 3. But watch what happens when I close that spacing up. All of a sudden, L3 may look like a capital letter B. And this can be very easily done using Microsoft Word of all things. Okay? And so we take a look at this. We say, is this website that I'm going to show you next Bank of America or Bank of America? Which one is the real bankofamerica.com website? If we don't look hard at that letter B, we may be fooled by this one down at the bottom. Okay. Let me show you another example of condensed spacing. All right. Take a look at these 2 websites. Can you see the difference? Well, if I zoom it up now, can you see the difference? So which one is real? The one on the bottom is the real website. Okay. So how did I get this fake Macy's website up here? Well, take a look. In trigonometry, R plus N equals M, or reality RN, but they're so close together, it looks like a letter M, doesn't it? So again, pay attention. If you look close at that letter R again, if we take a look at this again, you may be able to see this R and N put really close together here. Okay. So what happens if you do become a victim? Okay, what happens if you realize you went oops and you sent your bank account information, or you set the credit card PIN, or you applied for something and you got scammed? Okay, I will tell you that there is a lot of help out there just by doing a straight up web search. So what happens if I'm scammed? This is what I did earlier today. What do I do if I'm scammed? And these were just some of the websites that popped up. Now, again, don't get caught by a scam website trying to figure out what to do if you got scammed. So pay attention to what you're looking at there. But organizations like the Consumer Federal Trade Commission, Consumer Reports, Experian, these are sites that I would trust and that I would look at for what to do if I'm scammed. Okay? And even if I click on this link, I still want to look at the padlock. I want to look at the HTTPS. I want to see that these are legitimate websites. So to conclude what we're talking about today, to kind of put a bow on this, some things we want to pay attention to, things we want to be aware of, again, is learning that the internet is a great tool. And one of the benefits I've heard is that the internet made everybody in the world a publisher. That's really good news. The bad news, the internet made everybody in the world a publisher. And so anybody can get on there and publish anything they want to. There's no verification, there's no validation. So we want to be able to recognize the internet is not ironclad. It does have vulnerabilities, but if we know what the vulnerabilities are, if we can see the minefield, we can step around it. We can be aware of it and not be caught. I can teach this stuff very easily. I can show people the steps. This is easy enough to show, okay? But keep in mind, the hard part is to recognize the weakest part is the person with the mouse in their hand. And we still have to take the time to read what we're looking at here. We have to take the time to recognize, hey, is this a legitimate website or not a legitimate website? Okay. We have to be the ones to be the final decision maker on whether or not we're going to proceed with our actions. And again, by operating without emotion, by looking at things completely unemotionally and thinking critically, asking the question, what's going to happen? Why am I doing this particular thing before you do it? Is going to be a very, very helpful thing for you so that you do not become a victim and avoid as much as possible having an issue that you've got to work your way out of. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to say that that's the presentation. I hope it's been helpful for you. I'm happy to take questions now, of course. I'm happy to share any information that I can. Some of the experience I've had when I'm teaching this and talking to other folks. What questions I can answer for you, I'd be happy to do so.
If anybody has questions, go ahead and put them in the chat here, or feel free to unmute yourself if you'd prefer to ask them out loud. I just wanted to add, it's a little scary sometimes when you take dip your toe into the spam things that have been shunted off to the spam section of your email. I'm looking at what they're trying to, all of the tricks and scams that they're trying to get you to fall for. I had one come to my actual inbox a few days ago. It was kind of a scam and also a bit of a blackmail threat. And I think that was a little harder even for me to decipher, because I've thought about this stuff before, but figuring out that, they were saying, we're going to release this video of you. And he said, I've got your your credentials for your social media, and I'll, hack all of these things. Of course, I didn't know how much to take that seriously, but it was still a good reminder to, keep your accounts updated, use strong passwords, and that kind of stuff. So sometimes those also will come in that you're like, I don't know how legitimate this is, but I'm still going to use it as a encouragement to keep all of my accounts secure and be wary of things in the future. We've got some questions here in the chat. First from Denise. She says, I put my phone on the do not call list. I had so many texts asking if they could call me, made me think they were scammers. Yeah, that's a great comment, Denise. You can definitely be scammed by calls as well as by email. Alicia asks, how do you tell if work from home posting is authentic? A lot of them seem too good to be true. Okay, so like not just emails, but maybe a job posting itself. Do you have any thoughts on that, Phil?
With regard to job postings and work from home, whether they're email or they're posted, one of the things that I always recommend is try to find a person to call, a contact at that organization. Take a look at the website for the company. Try to find that organization. Try to find a phone number for them. If you have access to LinkedIn, see if there are people who are working at that company on LinkedIn. See if you can talk to them. Ask about the legitimacy. If you're not sure, have somebody that you trust take a look at that. You can reach out to us at JFS or any kind of career coach as well. Any career coach is happy to do that for you because we don't want anybody to fall into these scams. But if we have the ability to connect with a human being at that location or somebody who worked there, we're going to feel a lot better. But again, I would not want to make any move towards transacting with that organization, whether it's buying something or accepting employment, until I'm able to see a person or get some more information about that organization.
That's a good point, Phil. You kind of want to triangulate your sources and make sure that you've got, you've got actual information that is legitimate and good before you go forward with that. And just like so Phil said, you can always contact people at JFS. I'm putting their website here in the chat. So feel free to, you can see the HTTPS right there, secure connection to JFS on their website. And I will email everybody as well their contact information to get in touch and get advice or help with career or job postings. That's always a resource to you. And then Jesse also asks, so kind of like what I was saying with the blackmail situation, are there any situations where you'd better be served going to the police or another authority instead of just like the consumer FTC, where it's more of almost a criminal act that's happening?
Excuse me. Calling the police is never a bad idea. Understand you may get routed to a different department. There's a lot of scams out there, again, tax scams or things like that. My wife got a call. We're going to send the police after you if you don't do this. And, we call the police and we're never going to call you and come pick you up. We're just going to show up at the door. But if you have any questions, always reach out to the authorities. Excuse me. Always reach out to the authorities. Tell them what's going on. If they can't help you, they'll tell you they can't help you, but it's never a bad idea if you have any doubt at all to give them a call, let them know what's happening, and they can definitely give you some advice or take some information if it progresses to that level.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or, any other questions about this topic?
Hello, this is Omega. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, just checking. I'm on very antiquated technology. I was just wondering if I could briefly point out two other kind of avenues of potential scam or just general sketchiness when job searching, as I have experienced them, and maybe some people have, and they're behooved by the internet. The one is like kind of the random telephone call, And I don't enjoy any telephone call that I receive who the person doesn't introduce themselves, especially after I introduce myself. They don't say what their name is. They don't say on whose behalf they are. But they're like, oh, because once your resume is out there, it can really proliferate. It goes far and it goes vast. And so I don't give any unsolicited, if they tell me, okay, this is your application from such and such company, then we get talking. But, if they clam up as to self-identification, like I am already kind of done with them, and especially if they don't answer my questions directly. So that's one thing that I get every once in a while. I actually get that email form. I actually just, replied today to some random person from some random company I've never heard before. I asked her directly, did I apply to this? And she said, and her first email to me was that we can talk about this role in a Zoom meeting. Well, this role was never defined. It could be like sumo wrestling for all I knew. And so my reply is, well, I'm sorry, at first, before I give you any information, I just need to know, did I apply? What is this role? Who are you? But once we get things worked out, maybe we can still meet. So kind of keep it like even keel. And she said, yeah, we just kind of pulled your resume and it's something I don't have expertise in even. So I think that's one way to kind of be cautious. The other way is I think I've gone through this twice now. Once was in 2019. It was a place called FAR. R stands for recruitment. I can't remember what FA stands for, but long story short, I spent 2 days in a row with free training, with a gentleman and his employees to be one of those people in the Walmart who ask you to change your energy payment subscription, like your electricity payment subscription. Oh, do you pay Atmos? Do you pay, whoever? And I had to drag out of him at the last minute of the first day. Is this W-2 or is it like 1099? You're your own consultant. And he avoided it. And the other lady and I finally got out of him, there's no base pay. You are your own consultant, which for those who have or have not been your own independent consultant, makes you pay more income tax. I'll say that from experience. Just keep FYI. And so, I do not appreciate and he's really nice. I like him as a person, but if they're kind of evasive about anything, there's no reason for everyone to not be transparent. And then recently, the past few weeks, I almost emailed you, Phil, about asking about this, but I just kind of thought about it with common sense. So there's this company, they advertise on Indeed.com, and I've told Indeed.com to kibosh their postings because they're fake jobs. But they call themselves Zeal9. They have a website, it's like zeal9.com, Zeal9. And you go to the website and they're trying to sell people like courses way lower quality than Coursera, or even it's really bad, because he sent me copies of the courses for learning Tableau, because I actually met with him in person after we had a Zoom meeting, and I replied to him when I could meet, and he ghosted me. So I just went down to see if the place existed, just to see what's what. And it turns out Zeal9, and I think they're called also Uppen, Uppen. And it seems like him and some other guy are running this thing where he was dodgy with the questions as well, like sitting face to face when I kind of just came in and he happened to be in the office. And I guess the crux of it is, not only was he, again, not transparent and forthcoming, which, gives you a bit of a shady atmosphere to yourself. He said, well, sometimes you're W-2 with us, but if and when we hire you, and sometimes you're the independent consultant for the company. So, okay, so it's not like they're not really advertising a steady job or anything. And of course, Indeed.com, I actually applied to this 6 times. Same thing, 6 times. This is data analyst, is very minimal information. And on the 7th time, they said, let's have a Zoom interview. All the other times, they're like, sorry, we picked someone else. So that kind of, that's a red flag too. But I was curious. And here's the other thing. So he said, you know, to me, I happen to be pretty decent in various data analytics, but there are some newer softwares I'm teaching myself at the moment. Tableau, of course, is one of them. And he's like, okay, well, we should get you, learning Tableau. And he sent me links to like 5. They were they were previously recorded Zoom meetings with like 2 teachers and like 2 students. It's just poor quality. Like I just so just unprofessional. And he says, if we don't hire you or if you don't join on as an employee, you do not pay for these courses. He sent me the links. I've seen 2 of them, and out of the 5, that 2 was enough. I found other means to learn Tableau, but he said, if you do come on as an employee or work for us, whether it's 1099 or W-2, then you pay for whatever, and this happens to everyone. You pay for whichever courses that you've needed. Some people need more courses than others, and that makes sense. And I'm like, really? So like, kind of like, what's the ballpark for these, 5 Tableau? They're like, 45-minute long kind of videos of recorded Zoom meetings talking about Tableau. And I'm like, what's that run? And he says to me about between $800 to $1,200 for the lot of 5. And at first I did consider it briefly, because it's that emotion thing that Phil was on point with. I'm tired of being unemployed. I'm tired of feeling useless, whether it's a truth or distortion. But then I got my head out of my emotions, and I said, these videos aren't worth $200. And what's worse is, if I were to be like signed on as an employee, whether it's freelancing or as a W-2, I could be like signed on for something that's really short or really low pay, like a job that's like, maybe the job's only $400 total. And so if I get charged, let's say worst possible scenario, the $1,200, well, I've just thrown away $800 to kind of, ice skate uphill. And so I'm sure I'm not saying to be paranoid about everyone, but there are more where these come from. So as tempting as it is to kind of let our emotions sweep us away, please just kind of take a few days before you leap anywhere and into anything, because I haven't even replied to his email that, where he sent the links to that, and he hasn't replied to me asking, hey, are you dead? And it's been a few weeks. So it's clear I wasn't anything special to him, other than he's trying to trick me into buying his courses. I hope that helps. I hope that prevents.
Those are some really good points, that it's not just through email, but yeah, like Alicia was asking, there can be some really shady practices when you're job searching, either in, it seems too good to be true, or it's the job posting is the communication you have is just subpar, and something seems off. Always good to trust your instincts there, and kind of, like Phil was saying, try and research the company, look on Glassdoor, see if other people have had similar experiences, talk about it, or try and call them, or get this kind of information, like Omega was saying, really squared away, and get a real actual answer. So thank you for bringing those up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Zeal9 did not exist on Glassdoor or any likewise, platform.
Yeah,
so
that
that cinched it.
Yeah, that would definitely be a red flag. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for contributing your thoughts and your questions. This might be a good topic to continue looking into, for seeing what we can get you guys more information on, because there's definitely not a shortage of scams out there to be wary of. In closing, since we are about out of time here, I put JFS's website there in the chat in case you need reference about their services. Like Phil was saying, even about their upcoming food pantry. Make sure that anybody that you know who needs it has that information. Phil has put his email in here as well, and I will be sending that out to you all in just a moment here after we close out, just to let you know what, if you need to get in contact with Phil, you can. And I do want to let you know our next Dallas Job Seekers Club will be hosting Goodwill Industries of Dallas, and that'll be on March 4th. They'll be going over the training and resources that they provide, and all of that's free as well. So I'll be sending out that information if you want to register for that upcoming program. That's all that I've got here on my end. Anything else from you, Phil, as we close up here?
I've got a comment from Alicia. Alicia, I'm gonna, you said that we aren't actually taking drop-ins right now, but if you can send me an email, you'll take a look at my phone number and I can definitely talk with you over the phone, okay?
Sounds great. And I will send out Phil's contact information to you as well, so you can get that information. Thank you all so much for dropping by today. Hope you all are staying warm and safe as you go into the rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.